What are your favorite monsters from TV or movies?
No video games?
Oh, yeah, you can do video games.
Okay.
Ooh.
The obvious two that jump out are the alien from Alien or the Predator from Predator.
Oh, the Predator is so fun.
Yeah.
Those are some great monsters.
I like the idea of having a alien that is hunting and is better at hunting than you will ever be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie Predators was actually pretty good, and it was like when
I
they go to their planet, and like you kind of see kind of their whole sport aspect of it, and like the competitive nature of their hunting down of other races.
I actually ran
Ooh,
a
yeah.
D&D adventure kind of based on that. It turned out just as surprisingly good as the movie.
Well, I think it would be sad if we didn't mention the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
Ooh, that'll do.
I mean, those are some just great Hollywood monsters, essentially. I mean, we don't
They're
see
not
them
monsters, they're animals, David.
We don't see them here today,
Dr.
at
Grant.
least.
True.
I really like the monsters from The Last of Us. It's sort of a
Oh,
twist
the
on a zombie
clickers.
apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was really interesting, but the thing was really disturbing was its plausibility in the natural world. Because it could happen.
Oh, the cordyceps virus.
Cordyceps virus, yeah. Because
Oh.
it's not really zombies, it's just like a microbial mind control.
Yeah, like a fungus thing.
Yeah.
I find that really fascinating.
Ugh, and the sounds they make.
Welcome to Vox Arcana. I'm William,
I'm Jake.
And I'm David.
and this is a Dungeons & Dragons podcast, Episode 7, Monsters.
What do you guys think a monster is?
Oh, we're defining monster.
I think that the tough thing is distinguishing like what makes a monster different from an enemy, because or a villain, because some
Yeah.
like they're not interchangeable.
Yeah, a lot of... It's very easy to get caught up between a common NPC and a monster and trying to distinguish between them.
So I would say that Game of Thrones has lots of monsters, but all of them are human beings.
Ooh.
But see,
Well,
now we're
explain
using
them more,
we're
yeah.
using the monster term as like a more allegorical.
Villainous.
I mean,
yeah.
it's more literary allegorical than it is like because
Okay.
in Dungeons and Dragons, like monsters are fairly strictly defined as like monstrosities, like literal creatures, as opposed
Disagree.
to just like really. I don't think
There are
label...
humans in the monster manual. I rest my case, Your Honor.
Wait, there are.
Yeah, in the very back, it's all the human enemies like bandits and.
But
wizards
that's just extra stuff. Like they had to add that appendix because people would be mad. I don't think those are monsters.
Well, yeah. So I'm just arguing to be flippant, but I think D&D has a certain type of feel, and that is killing, like you're saying, monstrosities,
Beasts.
terrifying, beastly, demonic creatures. Because it's fun destroying something ugly.
Yeah. And scary and threatening. I think there is, and we'll definitely dig into this, but just there is a gray area of like what makes something conscious. And,
Yeah.
a lot of goblins and...
No,
they
we've talked
kinda
about that before.
are on the line.
I was going to say, would you define all monsters as evil or having the evil alignment?
No. Whoa, God, that's a good question.
No, because there's like angels in the book that are.
See, for me, I almost want to define monster as anything that you're in combat with. And maybe
that
that's
is
a loose
I
definition.
disagree. Because you could be in combat with anyone and it doesn't turn them into a monster. Like, I don't know, if you go up to the priest and stab him,
so
he's not a monster.
So the thing is, no, but you are.
Oh, I have the official definition.
Right?
Okay, let's hear the official definition.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
Here is the official definition from the 5th edition Monster Manual. It says, what is a monster? A monster is defined as any creature that can be interacted with and potentially fought and killed. Even something as harmless as a frog or as benevolent as a unicorn is a monster by this definition. The term also applies to humans, elves, dwarfs, and other civilized folk who might be friends or rivals to the player characters.
Wow. So that's literally anything. It's literally anything. I mean, I think that's too broad. I'm gonna be an opponent of that, because like I don't know if I would call like an ant a monster.
Something as harmless as a frog or as benevolent.
But if you were the size of an ant, it would be a monster to you.
Whoa, all right,
So-
we're going to bring it back to Mouse Guard, an adventure where you play as tiny mice and the monsters are snakes and cockroaches.
But
Yeah.
unless people, I didn't know mice were playable races yet. But I don't know. That's just a broad definition. I guess I did not know that. I did not look up that definition.
No, neither did I.
And it's like, yeah, I think that definition is just too broad. I guess for me, like, monsters are defined by, they're beasts that are usually bad alignment, some sort of evil or chaotic alignment that seek out harm upon civilization or upon, normal people. So I don't know. And my definition isn't very good. I don't know. I feel like that 5e definition is just way too broad, because I wouldn't call, a little frog a monster.
No, not at all. So kind of going along with what you said, Jake, I think that a monster is something that is monstrous and frightening and disturbing.
Okay.
So I've mentioned it a number of times already on the podcast, but I find that the Witcher universe is really, really bizarre. So essentially in his mythology, it was a normal planet like Earth. It was a medieval world, just the exact same. And then one day there was this sort of universal collision called the conjunction of the spheres, and it brought nightmare monsters into the ecosystem of Earth. And so they don't coexist. They want to kill and destroy, and they're awful. And it's following the path of history with literally monsters, terrifying things that will eat your children and like cut your head off.
Oh.
And that gives me a great motivation to go out and kill them, because they are terrible things that are not of this world, who need to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think for me, I would be tempted to define monster as anything that seeks to do harm to the playable characters. So anything that seeks to either attack or injure or do any sort of social harm even to the group of people that I'm DMing for.
Now, I'm a debater, and I like philosophy, and I like poking holes in things, and I feel like each of our arguments can have a million holes poked into it. Because David,
for sure.
under your definition, like a giant dragon turtle that's not attacking you is not a monster, because it's not harming you directly yet.
Benevolent monsters.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so, I don't know. Okay, so the bottom line is the term monster is perhaps one of the vaguest words in the in the English language. So we are going to loosely define them as a combination of our various definitions and go from there, because the word is too vague or too broad, depending on where you decide to draw the line.
Yeah, I had no idea that this conversation was going to go in this direction, so
I did
I've learned a
neither.
lot already.
It's a interesting one.
So what are some types of monsters as far as D&D is concerned? And then since we're kind of already there, as far as you personally are concerned?
So 5th edition splits them into different types, and I think we can kind of go through each one and go kind of talk about our thoughts on each one. So there are aberrations, beasts, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, giants, humanoids, monstrosities, oozes, plants, and undead.
Well,
So there are a
what
lot
else
of
is there?
different ones. Yeah, but I guess everything
Wow.
in 5e can be situated into each of those categories. So let's talk about the first one, aberrations. So aberrations are utterly alien beings. So these are like beholders, mind flayers, the kind of Cthulhian, real scary things. So what do you guys think about aberrations? Do you use them?
Oh, yeah. I just used a beholder in my game on Sunday, and it was just as terrifying as you would expect.
Yeah, I really enjoy aberrations. I don't get to use them as often as I would like, but I think they're some of the most interesting and potentially horrifying of the monsters that you can fight.
Yeah, aberrations I think are really cool because you can kind of shift the combat perspective to a more battle of wills, a more kind of intellect,
Me?
wisdom. Will, did you just say me?
Yeah.
Where you can make it less about, martial combat and more about kind of a mind game. People use those stats as kind of their dump stats. And mind flayers really can challenge people in those areas who are just beefed up fighters.
It almost makes the game more Cthulhian in nature with aberrations.
Oh, yeah.
Just because they play on that outer realm horrific type.
Cosmic scale.
Cosmic scale fear.
And I just realized this while we're talking about it. I think, and I don't know this for sure, so someone will correct me. I think that the aberration category are generally hyper intelligent compared to the rest of the monsters in the book. I know particularly mind flayers are supposed to be genius level creatures. There's a variant, I don't even know if it's a house rule, but it's an idea that they're so smart that when you get into combat with one, you would have all the players tell you, the GM, what they're going to do that round, and they can't change it. Because that aberration is so intelligent, he can anticipate literally everything they would do.
That's fantastic.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I want to do that, but it'd be a challenge, but I think it could work.
Yeah, I mean, every mind flayer I've used has been just a roaring success. Okay, so the next category is beasts. I feel like this one's
bread and butter.
Yeah, this one's pretty simple. I think we can, these are the things we see in everyday life for the most part. There are still some fantastic beasts.
And where to find them?
Where do we find those? Yeah.
Rats.
Rats are also beasts.
But beasts, I think, are.
That's true.
I think beasts are easier to conjure up in minds because people know what they are.
Yeah, they're very familiar and safe. But I think
relatable.
You could do a lot. I think with an adventure with beasts. I have this notion of running a Russia, like in Siberia in 1800s, and it's a wintertime thing, and there's just literally hundreds of wolves that are picking the town apart. I mean, what do you do against just this one enemy type when there's hundreds of them?
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
I think another thing with beasts, I think an easy way to make your game a little more flavorful or just like fantastic, otherworldly, is to put dinosaurs in the game, because dinosaurs are beasts. They're considered beasts, but they're a great way to just make the world more interesting, and show this is not Earth that you're playing in, unless you're playing in Earth. But it's an easy way to add.
It's almost like it's fantastic without being overly fantastic. I would recommend reading the Dinotopia books if you haven't read those already, because they just have fantastic paintings about people coexisting with dinosaurs. It's really cool. They'll give you inspiration.
I feel like beasts are just great filler creatures just to throw into your game. They can add so much to the environment. They can add so much to things that you can interact with. They're just great all around things that you can just generally add in at pretty much any point in time because they're everywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, right now I'm going through the Tube of Annihilation campaign, and yeah, it's just so nice when they're going through the jungle. You can just toss in some alligators or some hippos or some, gorillas, monkeys. Like, it's just an easy way to make traveling through an area more difficult without, dropping a mind flare on them, or dropping some difficult thing.
Even makes it more just atmospheric in general. If you're describing the scenery and you're seeing these like alligators and hippos, that you're not in the forest.
Yeah, it's a good way to
in some swampy area.
Yeah, like it's a great way to define the ecology of your world, is to fill it with these beasts.
Next on the list we have celestials. These are creatures that are native to the upper planes. Think about Greek mythology and their perception of heaven. That's kind of this category.
See, I imagine these like angels or like heralds of certain gods or goddesses.
Yeah,
I don't use these that much.
I don't either.
I feel like because in the monster manual they're pretty strong. They're defined as like real big, powerful entities for obvious reasons. So it's really hard to unless they show up as a quest giver. I haven't really. I don't have many celestials in my game.
It would be cool to start off an adventure. Maybe there's a town where every year a celestial angel comes down and gives some great quest.
Mhm.
So just so the players get this sense of the fantastic early on.
Absolutely.
You could even run like a Diablo style campaign where
Ooh.
you are constantly dealing with celestials, and there's just the realms are just merging together almost, and you're dealing with all these crazy beings.
I feel like that's good for like high level campaigns too.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
eventually, when you get that point, you're essentially godlike at level 20, and so you're gonna have to throw at them, enemies that are also godlike or celestial.
So our next one is constructs.
Oh baby, I
Oh.
love constructs.
Have you used
Yeah, I
them?
think
Oh my god, all the time. Yeah, I in my world, there's kind of the gnomish kind of steampunk technology that started off pretty simple, has gotten more advanced. So yeah, I have tons of little constructs. Yeah, a lot of times I'll have them fight, automatons, and just these things that feel so inhuman because they were created, not born. Um, and because of that, I love it because my players are oftentimes very charismatic and they like, the social aspect of D&D because they know their DM loves it. So a lot of times they'll try to talk their ways out of situations. And there's no way to talk your way out of a situation with a construct because they don't have the social capacity to interact with you. So it's kind of a forced combat,
Would you play as a construct character?
Oh my god, as a Warforged? Absolutely. That sounds
What about-
I
awesome.
would love to.
What about a Modron? Like a Penta Modron?
Ah, no, those things have such a complex and like rigid structured lore that I would have to change them so much that they would no longer be a Modron.
Yeah.
Next on the list, we have dragons.
I love dragons.
These are probably the most iconic, as it's in the name of D&D.
David, you sounded like you were about to throw up. As
I think I'm about to throw up after that cheesy line.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, as you guys know, I think I'm the only one of us three that really likes dragons a lot. Like,
No, I like
yeah.
dragons. I just don't like using them because my parties never got high enough level.
Well, yeah, I love dragons. Like, we've talked about dragons extensively in episode 2. So yeah, you guys know my thoughts. I love them.
Next is elementals, creatures native to the elemental planes. Do we use these?
I think elementals are a pretty common facet of games that I've run. They're pretty good in medium level parties, and they kind of can be fit to any sort of adventure. You just gotta, throw in a little elemental flavor, maybe some earth or water, and boom, there you go.
Yeah, I really like elementals. I mean, I don't think I use them that much, but I think they feel like a staple of D&D. And so I'll use them occasionally. I think the most fun I've ever had with one was a boss at the end of a dungeon. I think it was in Waterdeep in the Yawning Portal. But the final boss was an omnimental. Or an omnimental, and it had every type. I think each limb was a different element, and that was really cool,
That's really
to see them to see how my players had to kind of take a different approach to each limb. It was pretty sweet.
That's awesome. Fey creatures. What are our thoughts on them?
Oh, they're weird. I don't know if I can
They
use them that
are
much.
weird. I'm not sure I like them because they are kind of in line with that old-fashioned idea of fairies from, all of human history.
Fairy
of
tales,
just
yeah.
silly trickster. I don't even know like
Way
the
of
right words for that.
explaining natural phenomenon.
Yeah, right. Like this waterfall is here because there's a waterfall fairy that makes it happen.
I think I would
Classic
be.
lore.
I think I would be more inclined to use them if I were to run an adventure in the Feywild, because, I mean, that's their home place. But I think it would also help to be more acquainted to them so that you could use them in future adventures and kind of just sprinkle them in. But I haven't really done a whole lot with them
There's
in the past.
an idea that they will just trick you or screw you over without realizing that they're doing anything wrong. Like in The Hobbit, the book when they're visiting with the elves, they have a really strange experience with them. And it's, to me, random and chaotic and not very fun to read. And I guess I haven't really wanted to run them because of that.
So next up is fiends. Fiends include, like devils and demons, which I actually combine, which is apparently a huge part of the lore is like demons and devils hating each other. But I find it much easier to not distinguish between the two and just kind of combine them.
I almost feel like if I was to make my own little monster manual, I would probably only have 3 categories of creature, and that is humans, elementals, and everything else. And everything else would probably be kind of demonic.
Huh. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because what more do you need? Like, you can subdivide these forever.
Yeah, that's
humans, elementals, and then fiends.
I guess beasts have to be included too, but
and then deities of some sort.
Oh, look at David. Just keep going.
Oh, David.
I'm sorry.
No, I use these a lot. Like I will have demons show up quite frequently, just because they're a very, when they show up, there's no qualms about their alignment. It's pretty straightforward. It's like, all right,
you know they're bad.
Yeah, this is a bad guy. There's no negotiating with this guy. The old D&D saying, we don't negotiate with demons.
It's definitely one of the old sayings. So there was a video game called Neverwinter Nights that I never got to beat. I'm sure lots of our listeners have played and beat the game, but at one point in the game, you find a demon in a cage, and he makes you a bargain. If you let him out, he'll help you later. And I let him out, and I have no idea if he comes back to screw you or actually help you. But I love that uncertainty. So I've had that uncertainty since I played it, like over 10 years ago.
That's so great. Mm-hmm. Okay, so next we have giants. Do you guys use giants a lot in your games?
I have never used a giant.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say I haven't used them much either.
I think I've used them a little bit. One of my towns in my world is kind of a town where there's like a treaty between giants and humans. And that's where the Goliath come from. Like they're kind of a half giant, half human. And yeah, I've used them there. And it's just really interesting to have just essentially a normal human that is just really big. Like it's so simple, but it changes a lot of the world. Like in that city where the giants and humans intermingle, like all the buildings are just bigger. All the chairs are just bigger. Every part about it is just enlarged, and it's super interesting to kind of see that in the world. So I don't use them much, but I think the little I have has been pretty cool.
There's a really interesting YouTube channel that I can't think of the name of right now, but he looks at fantasy races and he talks about how they would be most effective in a fight. And for giants, I remember he said either a bow and arrow because of the amount of force they can pull, or the best choice was actually a sling, like the kind you spin centrifuge, because the amount of force you'll be able to generate is like way more than any siege weapon.
Okay, so next up, technically monsters, I guess. Humanoids.
I guess.
Humanoids, which are basically any race of people you find in D&D.
This includes goblins as well.
Does
That's
it?
true. Hobgoblins, lizard folks, gnolls, orcs, kobolds, bugbears, etc.
Sounds like a family reunion.
What? This one is, I feel like for most of us, this will probably be most of the quote unquote monsters we use are humanoids. Do you guys disagree?
Are you saying that goblins are not monsters?
No, I am saying that goblins could technically be monsters. But I think most of the humanoid races, like, it's just weird calling a high elf priest a monster.
But do you personally believe a goblin is a monster?
Oof.
Oh, here we go.
You know what, guys? I'm going to say it. I don't.
Oh.
I think if they are a playable race, I think you should feel kind of bad killing them. That is my rule of thumb. If you can play as
kind
them,
of bad.
If you play as them, like, you should feel bad murdering many of them.
Oh, I would feel bad. Okay, let me put this in perspective for our audience. Let's say you swat a fly. Okay, so it's easy to kill a bug that's small. You kill a cockroach. But some people really can't even make the jump between killing a cockroach and killing a mouse, even if they're pests. So as animals size up, it becomes more and more like I don't know if morally is the right word, but personally difficult to kill them, even a chicken. So this
All right.
this is a thing that I've thought about a lot, and that is I feel like goblins are too human, and I want to make them more beastly and more horrible.
Huh.
Because
Interesting.
I actually wrote a blog about why would a goblin need gold? Because you can kill a goblin and they drop money, but having money implies that they have an economy or at least a system of trade, and that makes them kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that goblins should be more like giant rats on two legs, where they just literally like a raccoon, right?
Yeah.
They'll get into your trash and just make a mess, and they have no morals and no ability to comprehend any issue other than their own food, their own desire.
See, I feel like the only reason that goblins have money is because they think it's shiny and they like to hold on to shiny things.
So they're more like monkeys, like a chimpanzee kind of, but like really
Yeah.
violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think that makes sense. I think that's why I prefer to use gnolls for like low level monsters, because gnolls are like they are the embodiment of like chaos and conquest, and they are evil. You know, there's
Yeah,
no
they're
like
absolutely evil.
yeah, like they are just. I think they're like the remnants of, you know, like the god of war or something like that. Like the hyenas that followed him like ate people and then turned into gnolls, something like that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But like the gnoll, that's why I like to use gnolls more than like goblins or hobgoblins, even though hobgoblins are really cool too.
Hobgoblins are cool because
Yeah.
it's like the Roman Empire, but as a monster race.
Yeah. I really like their like chain of command and like their structure and their strategy.
They're really underutilized, yeah.
Underutilized is a good term for it.
All right, moving on, we have monstrosities. It says, and I quote, monstrosities are monsters in the strictest sense. Frightening creatures that are not ordinary, not truly natural, and almost never benign. Wow. Like a minotaur, as an example.
Huh.
So this is something you see and you know it wants to kill you. There's no gray area here.
Well, it's weird because it includes in the book, it's under monstrosities is an owl bear, which I would include more of it as a beast.
Well, I think because they're supposed to be an aberration, like this unholy thing that a wizard has made in a lab.
Huh. Oh, that's interesting because
Yeah.
the owl bears in my game are like just part of the ecology.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that shifts like a monstrosity. Yeah, because when I hear monstrosity, I think like just some.
I feel like maybe like a Frankenstein almost.
Oh yeah,
Is what a monstrosity would be most akin to.
for sure.
See, that's a good example, but a bad example because Frankenstein had his own like system of ethics.
Yeah.
I mean, Frankenstein
David
in like
speaking
the
as the
general, not
townsfolk.
the actual.
Yeah, something that
We
that's
must
unnatural.
kill this beast.
And I think
I
you mean
almost wonder-
Frankenstein's monstrosity, David.
I think you could have an adventure about a wizard that's just creating horrible things that are going out into the world and causing problems, and you have to track them all down. And then you would go beyond owlbear, like maybe you have a, let's say a mouse rat.
Stop.
Oh my
I
god.
feel like you could use any beast from the like Avatar: The Last Airbender universe. Like they're all just
Yes.
combinations of animals.
Yeah.
You can even have like a tiger with like 100 legs, like a scented tiger.
Oh,
David, you should play that wizard that Will was talking about.
David is that wizard I was talking about.
Probably.
Okay, so next up are oozes. Do you guys use like gelatinous cubes and these type of oozes?
I don't think I have because I don't really use dungeons, and these are kind of a dungeon creature.
Oh, that's so sad.
Oozes are great, but they're like super niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have very specific ways in which they fit in, and they're not always applicable. You can't just throw it in. I feel like you have to craft it to your game. And when you do, they're great.
Yeah, I feel like when you do craft them right, they're just fantastic, especially when you describe them right. Like, especially, like, you could just say a weird skeleton that looks like it's being held up by puppeteer strings slowly hovers towards you. And you're just like, oh, but then slowly, like, they realize, like, it's just a skeleton that's encased in, like, a clear gelatinous cube that's slowly moving towards them. Like, oh, that's just so interesting and so cool.
A lot of these creatures, at least in the ooze category, are made to solve a game design problem inside of dungeons. And I feel, for a lot of these creatures, I feel that proper consideration has not been made to how they would affect the world. Because if I was making a realistic world with gelatinous cubes, I think they would live in the ocean like a jellyfish because they're weightless and they can kind of operate better.
Yeah.
So maybe the oceans are incredibly dangerous in one world.
That's
No, I
interesting.
think that the oozes just feel so D&D. Like they just feel
Yeah.
so, first
Yeah.
edition. Like
Yeah, for
classic.
sure. Next, we have plants. It says plants in this context are vegetable creatures, not ordinary flora.
I think I have learned to use plants more after playing Tomb of Annihilation and having my players in
Really?
the Jungle of Chult because there's so many more opportunities for, big giant Venus flytrap monsters that, can lurch out of the underbrush and suck in a player. Creeping vines and all sorts of like jungle sprites and stuff like that. I think it has really taught me to use plants in a better way because before I don't think I used plants at all.
Yeah, I don't use plants very much, but I really want to. I think that they have some really cool world building aspects that you can put into them, almost having like a forbidden forest
Yeah.
with plant guardians where it's almost like nature is being incarnated into the plants around it.
Yeah. Okay, last up are undead. Do you guys use undead a lot?
Of course. I think undead are a staple of any D&D game, almost as much as dragons are.
Oh, you can't play D&D without the undead, for real.
Huh. Interesting. I think for me the undead, I use them quite a bit as well, but I think the issue with me is balance based on how many clerics or paladins are in the party. Because if you throw a certain number of undead at a party, it could be the right challenge level for that party. But if that party is all paladins, then that challenge is nothing. And it's really interesting to have a certain category of monster that, a certain type of magic is so good against, because then it makes certain players exceptionally good at fighting this certain monster, which is kind of a weird dynamic you have to take into account when balancing encounters with undead and holy magic.
But I mean, isn't that the case for any type of monster, that certain party members are always going to have some sort of edge versus them?
I don't think so, because if you think of just like a giant, like there's no like secret giant slaying magic that automatically kills.
No.
But like with undead, there is like obviously like paladins can just wreck them.
I have a small controversial opinion. I don't think that balance exists in D&D, or at least it shouldn't.
Okay. Wait, why?
So, I have 2 points. The first is that the combat rating system in D&D is just kind of a joke. And looking at the history of D&D, I don't think that the game was made to be balanced around giving players this optimum experience that they have a chance of overcoming. I think it's supposed to present you with a variety of different situations that players respond to the ones that they can actually respond to and run away from the rest.
Huh.
This leads me to a notion that I only just discovered a couple of weeks ago, and that's the idea of combat as war versus combat as sport. What this means is, in video games, if you played really any video game in the last 15 years, you play as a character, and you're in the low-level zone, and you fight enemies that are appropriate for your level, and you expect it to be balanced. D&D, the old game from the 70s, was not like that at all. They said, here is a full world, and there's enemies of all different levels. And when you get treasure in those old systems, gold gave you XP. So you didn't have to kill things, you just had to be clever and get gold. It presented a problem for the players to solve, because you really want to build situations or manipulate situations in such a way that you can win. You don't go into a fight expecting to have like a fun, balanced encounter. You flood the river, or you start a fire in the enemy's lair, or you get a bunch of poisonous plants and make them eat it, right? Like you manipulate the situation so by the time you go in, you've already won. Ideally, you'll never swing a sword, which I think is fascinating.
That is.
Yeah.
So the newer games are basically combat as sport, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So combat as war was almost like treating combat as an obstacle to overcome, whereas now it's more of
It's a part of the game.
professional boxing match almost when you go into combat with combat as sport. It's more for the fun of combat.
I don't know if I like the term combat as sport. I would define it more as, I don't know if this is its own third category or if this is kind of under the sport category, but I would define my style of play as like combat as cinema. And
Ah,
I would want it. It doesn't matter anything about the fairness of it. It doesn't matter anything about like the war, um, strictness of it. What matters is this cool to view? And I take that view word in two ways. I think if there are people watching the combat in the game, like just like, people who are just,
As a passerby.
yeah, it's just someone as a passerby watching the combat, they would go, "Oh, that's cool." Or they would be like, "Whoa, that's cool." I guess that kind of counts as sport. But also if there's someone watching me as the DM giving the flavor and narrating the fight, and the players' actions interacting with each other, if people are listening or viewing that like in the same room as us playing, they would also be entertained. So
wow.
I've tried to do that and it's improved my game significantly. If I pretend people are watching both in the game and in the room with me, like it has just drastically improved my game. And so this leads me to back to the whole balance thing. I don't think balance matters at all to me. Like I see so many posts on, the D&D subreddit or, D&D Facebook groups or whatever. People are just talking about challenge rating and balancing encounters. For me, I rarely fudge my dice, but I fudge the numbers of monsters all the time. If someone does this amazing corkscrew kick where they land a perfect blow on the snout of the dragon, it's just so cinematic and everyone worked hard for this moment and it's just perfect and beautiful and it just clicks. It doesn't matter how much health that dragon had left, like that dragon dies.
Whoa.
And I do that very often. And I don't do it like if someone does something really cool to start off the encounter, they kill a Tarask because they did a cool slash. No. It's got to be something that's like very very exciting and awesome and cinematic while the monster has, under 25% health. Then I will just end the monster right there. The typical Matt Mercer, how do you want to do this? I love doing that because I think it makes the players have more fun. I think it makes me have more fun because combat goes a little quicker. And so I think treating combat as cinema has almost made me not answer any of these really complex questions, but just kind of dodge them, just kind of avoided them in a way that keeps the fun going.
And I think that's a very controversial stance that
Oh,
you
absolutely.
have.
Yeah.
Because D&D, here's another argument that I won't get all the way into, but I don't think D&D really exists as a universal thing. I think it's so different between the different GMs and the different players, and even how you're feeling that night as a group.
Yeah.
And
Or if people are drinking or not.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that with Jake's group, you have this culture of almost like cinematography. Or,
Storytelling.
Yeah.
it's much more improv and much more about making an episode of a TV show than it is about everybody playing a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I would not even say like you're doing it wrong, because if everybody's having fun, you're doing it right.
Yeah, and I don't treat this as gospel either, because it works for my group, but I know plenty of groups I've played with, especially with like younger kids or people who are new to the game. If I'm playing with people who are not necessarily as good at that improv, then the game shifts. It doesn't become combat as cinema anymore. It might become combat as sport. Or if I'm playing with a bunch of classic video gamers who have played the earlier editions, we're gonna make it more combat as war. I think that's the biggest part of being a good DM, is being adaptable to your players. Like, 'cause your goal is, like you said in an earlier episode, you're kind of hosting a party and you're trying to cater to the needs of your players to make it fun for the whole table.
Absolutely.
How do you guys best utilize monsters?
One of the authors of the Curse of Strahd game was playing in his friend's D&D game, and they were just going through a dungeon, and the DM was rolling random encounters, and a vampire came out, and they fought a vampire, and there was no reason for them to be there, and that guy's frustration is what led to him and his wife writing the Curse of Strahd adventure, which is legendary.
Yeah.
So I think that best utilizing monsters is maximizing their flavor, their location, and their powers in a way that totally captivates players. As we've mentioned in previous episodes, our favorite monsters. The Hag is a great creature because you can build an entire miniature campaign around her. And the same goes for many other creatures. Like I mentioned, wolves. You can do a whole thing with just lots of wolves.
Yeah.
And instead of like, oh, you're fighting a goblin now, or you're fighting some plant creature, it's all about care and attention to detail.
Yeah, also going off that point, I think monsters can be used to both elicit a feeling and reinforcing like the theme or the tone of a game, much like NPCs do. Like they are a living, breathing part of the ecology and civilization of your game. And they should reflect that. That's why random tables, in my opinion, are better for going through and picking the best one rather than rolling, because you have to pick what fits into your world, your dungeon, your campaign, your forest, whatever, because like you were mentioning in that story, like a random vampire oftentimes doesn't have a reason to be in the cave in front of you. And you either got to jump through a lot of narration hooks to give them a reason why, or you just kind of flippantly say, yeah, it's just a vampire, kill it. So yeah, I think I utilize monsters to, like I said, reinforce the tone of my game, but to mostly elicit a feeling. If they see a Tarrasque, I want them to feel dread. If they see a mimic, I want them to feel, surprise as it reveals itself. If they see, a mind flayer, I want them to feel fear. So I think you can definitely, when you're building an encounter or building a campaign, you go, what do I want my players to feel right now? And then pick a monster that fits to create
I like that
feeling.
a lot. I love that. This goes along with what we were saying before about, from Jake's design perspective of combat as cinema, you think, what is the most cinematic creature in this scene right now?
Yeah. What would fit the best?
And you see, you're not thinking, what would be mathematically balanced to fight 4 fourth level party members of this class combination? You're thinking, I want to horrify, or I want to delight or confuse. I have this certain feeling I want to capture, and what creatures would help me get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So a problem for me with monsters in my campaign is oftentimes I play with a lot of, very experienced role players that are good at improvisation, often have very high charisma characters. So because of that, they will often try to talk their way out of situations and even try to talk their way out of encounters or especially fights with monsters. Do you guys find that happening a lot in your games? And like, how do you deal with it?
I mean, as a player, I always enjoy trying to talk my way out of an encounter if I can. I know recently there was a beholder that I tried to talk to, and let's just say it did not go well.
You shouldn't try to talk to beholders.
But I don't think that made, not being able to talk to it made it any less fun. So I think that certain monsters, as long as the behavior is rational and it makes sense, it's totally fine for them to just be straight up attacking you.
Yeah.
This is a big thing that I've discovered with my DMing over the past few years, and that is the importance of consistency. Let me say it again. The importance of consistency. So if you have a creature that behaves a certain way, it needs to behave that same way every time. Nothing drives me crazier than when I'm playing somebody's game and they say, oh, the Medusa attacks you right away. And then the next time you see Medusa, oh, she wants to talk. Right? You're like, well, why isn't this the same?
Yeah.
And
no, that's good.
Yeah. So going kind of back into combat as war, I just feel like there's so many different ways to run D&D and so many different flavors. I feel like some of the rules in the game will simply not apply to everyone. Like Jake, I'm not even sure he's playing 5th edition D&D.
I don't know
at this point
either.
But whatever he's running, like, it's working better, I guarantee, than a lot of people who are using the rules as closely to the rules as they can. So
I think it's more important to focus on the spirit of the rules and what they're trying to accomplish than actually following the rules themselves.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
David, how would you optimize monsters for combat? Because I feel like in 5th edition it takes a while.
So what do you mean by optimize? What are you looking to accomplish?
I'm looking to speed up combat in almost any way that I can. The average combat for me will take 30 minutes to an hour, but that's around low levels.
So are you talking about optimizing combat in terms of making it go faster or more smoothly?
What are some ways I can speed up combat? That's what I'm really looking for.
So if you want to speed up combat, probably one of the things that you want to have is all of the stats easily accessible in front of you. That's probably the number one thing that I can suggest, is just being prepared, knowing your stats ahead of time, knowing how the monster is going to interact with the rest of the group. If you're struggling to figure out what to do, you might want to think beforehand what their characteristics might be in combat. Are they going to go for just the person in front? Are they more intelligent? Maybe they're going to take out a spellcaster. You have to think of these things beforehand, so that way you know how to act in game. You have to have almost a battle plan, essentially.
Do you guys? I think one way to speed it up is do you guys roll for monster damage?
No, I just take the average.
Yeah, I take the average too. I think that's a way to speed it up.
Yeah,
and I try to find any corners to cut in combat just to speed it up, because I feel like combat, especially with a lot of monsters, especially at higher levels, it can take up entire sessions, and it's just like, I hate ending a 3-hour session being like, hey guys, what did we do last session? They'd be like, oh yeah, I think we just were in a fight.
And it's like, fought some owlbears.
It's like, okay, come on, so I looked at any way to speed up combat that I can, and I think I almost cut so many corners that people would call me a heretic, and some people would say I'm not playing D&D.
I would say that.
Yeah, because I cut so many corners with, just, I will make their health whatever it needs to be to make it cinematic. I will edit their spells to do as much damage as I think is fair. I change a lot of stuff, and I definitely am heretical from the canon of the monster manual.
This is something that's really been on my mind lately, and that is, it's called the OSR. It's Old School Renaissance. Depending on who you ask, they'll have a different... I have to... Disclaimer, OSR might not mean Old School Renaissance. Anyway, the speed of combat is incredibly fast because there's very few things to track. However, the pendulum swings back, and that means that combat really doesn't have as many options or choices. And so it appeals to me as a DM because I just don't want to track every poison condition and 300 hit points and all this and that. But then I know my players really dig that crunchy, almost video gamey skill system. Because say what you will about 5e, it's great with character progression.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think it's hilarious. Oftentimes, I think the question I ask most that my players are probably sick and tired of me asking is, "What's your armor class?" Because I don't. It's just something I don't keep track of. I don't like. I don't, because there's just so much stuff. My mind is so filled with the plot and the cinematic nature of it, and at the timing of things, what's going to pop out at what time to provide the maximum elicited emotion that I want. That oftentimes there's no room for simple things like armor class or what spells they have and stuff like that.
Something that I saw online was delegation. And what I started doing is that the first time they successfully hit a monster, I tell them the armor class. And they write it down on the dry erase mat. And then the first time they deal damage, also, I tell them, here's how much health they have.
Weird.
And I leave the players in charge of tracking all the health and all that stuff. And it takes a lot off of my plate, so I focus on doing sort of role-playing the monster. Like, what would they do given the situation? And the players eagerly take up that work of the bookkeeping, because they want to make sure that every hit point is accounted for.
That's incredible. Like, I don't... I guess I am... There is still room for me to declutter that a little bit, because I guess for me, I never tell them the armor class, and I never tell them how much health they have left.
Oh yeah.
I don't like saying the HP because I like to, like, this is gonna sound bad, but I like to fudge the numbers a little on the HP.
Yeah, that's the depending other side upon of it. Is that you can't fudge it if they know exactly how much is left.
That's true. That kind of eliminates my cinematic thing. If they land a really cool killing blow and they do the math and there's 1 health left, then I mean...
Well, the solution for that is you just count up. And so the total, and then you can see like the current total of damage.
I guess it makes sense too.
That's interesting.
I might use that. That's really cool.
That's smart.
It's really improved my combat experience.
For sure.
Especially as a person who's terrible at math.
So what are some ways that you guys have scaled monsters up or down? Like, what are some numbers you can change, like in the stat blocks, to make monsters more scary or more powerful, or make them easier to kill?
So I have some heresies to confess.
Okay.
The-
Come, my child.
So
Confess.
there's no such thing as balance in D&D. All you do is you take, let's say a I don't know, a goblin, and you want to make a boss goblin. Go and find a monster in the book that is roughly like the toughness you want, and you just paste that armor class and that damage onto a goblin, and you're done.
Yeah.
And
I
health.
think
Oh,
that
man.
if to simply just increase the AC, to increase the health, and to increase the damage that you deal is kind of a boring way to scale monsters up and down. I think putting more of their power into their unique characteristics is what really makes monsters more interesting to me.
Yeah.
So having, let's say, a Medusa, you want to focus on the paralyzing aspects of her gaze more so than you would want to increase the HP in order to make it more scary.
No, I love that. Yeah, because it increases the thing about the Medusa that makes it a Medusa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it increases just the identity of it and makes it more scary, but it doesn't necessarily make it harder. And you can always, if you want to add a few HP to make it a little tougher so the experience of combat lasts a little more longer, then you can always do that.
So I agree, but I also disagree. I agree that you want to capture that flavor and just kind of amplify that to a higher level. Like maybe instead of paralyzing one person a turn, she's paralyzing all of them and they're all making saves. But I think you do need to raise just the core stats, otherwise it won't last a round.
Sure.
And that sucks.
I think for me, kind of, I'm gonna kind of side with David over Will on this. Like, I want combat to, in general, go quicker. And so, going back to what we're talking about, ways to speed up combat. Whenever I buff up a monster, I rarely buff its hit points or its armor class. What I buff is just the amount of damage it does, because that makes the encounter more scary, but it doesn't make the encounter longer. And so, rarely, I'm dealing with mostly pretty high level players. I probably couldn't do this, when they're below level 3, because, at that point, if you scale up the damage, you can just start one hitting people. But I wanted to do damage that scares them. Because especially if you have a healer in the group, if it does damage and they just go, okay, that's fine, I can lay on hands that next turn. That's not how combat should be. It should be like, oh my God, like, we got to do something about this. We either got to run or kill this thing quick. Like, combat should be not like a kind of like sport. I don't think it should be like sport, because that makes it sound like combat is something that's fun to be in.
Fun. It's more of like a challenge. It's not necessarily difficult because you can leave if it's sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Say
Sport,
time
you
out,
can
guys.
call
I'm out of
timeout.
here.
Yeah, no, you got to make the stakes high enough, and I think just upping the damage is the way that I do that. The quickest and easiest.
I think the problem with just increasing the armor class and HP, it turns the combat into a wet noodle fight where you're just like, you're hitting each other with pool noodles and nothing's really happening. You're just kind of slowly decreasing arbitrary numbers. And I'd rather have a fight with like real, like, people are actually getting hurt. They're getting stabbed with real swords where you can kind of see people bleed rather than just kind of gently jabbing each other.
Yeah,
If we're
absolutely.
talking about 5th edition, though, like, that's the game. Like, it inflates. And actually, so in spite of what I'm saying about increasing stats, that's the solutions I have to use because of the system that we're talking about. In a perfect world, I would be running some old school game where the combat is fast and deadly, like you're saying, like, because it matters. The example that I saw just today was in 5th edition D&D, your character goes from nobody, he goes from a hero into Superman. Like, he just turns into a god. In the old school D&D, they go from a nobody into Batman. There's a big difference because you're not really any better at punching stuff, but you have tools in your belt, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you have different options for approaching situations, and I freaking love that.
No, that is really cool. I think in general, though, I don't know. I think you mentioned like that you've had players wipe bosses before they can even make a turn.
Yes.
I've never had that happen to me. I mean, first off, because if that happened, I would just triple its health. Like, that just seems...
But that
no
violates
fun.
the consistency, Jake. Consistency.
Well, I don't know. I'm fine with fudging numbers to make it more cinematic, and I'll take my C word over your C word anytime.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so the last question, kind of to round this all off. There's kind of three tiers of enemies that I could think of. They're kind of the low level, not very challenging enemies. They're kind of the mid level. These are the semi challenging, almost deadly monsters. And then there are the high level, like dangerous, terrifying monsters. What is your favorite? I guess we'll go through all three of the levels. Starting off? What's your favorite low level, like easy monsters?
I think any sort of goblin or zombie, just simple horde type creature, is great at low levels because it provides just a lot of just general enemy to fight.
Uh huh.
I think early on, it's for me the way I like to do campaigns is I like to have some sort of just generic mass enemy that you're fighting, and then to slowly kind of warp the enemies later on from being a very numbers based group of people to harder difficulties as you get higher of singular creatures.
Yeah.
So early on, yeah, goblins, zombies.
I think that the monsters need to enforce the story that you're telling. And so maybe my answer is going to be all three at once, but I think that you want to have, like David's saying, the goblins or the kobolds or just some low-level threat that's sort of on the ground. But as you get higher in D&D, you really approach godhood. And so by the time you're mid-level, I would like to see those celestials coming down, maybe even a few demons, whatever. Like it gets stranger to enforce that flavor. And then by the time you're at the highest levels, you're ripping stars out of space and traveling through time.
This conversation went in a different direction than I was thinking. I was just going to ask, what's your favorite low-level monster? Then mid-level, then high. And you guys went very not specific.
Well, I mean, the truth is, like, I don't often get to the mid or high levels because it just goes away. People go to college or...
Oh, gosh, don't Toy Story 3 me.
Wait a minute. Am I Woody? Oh, no.
I guess I can be specific on each of these tiers. I think for me, I like gnolls as low-level monsters because they're so evil and they're fun to roleplay as like hyena dog people. It's like just like savage, ravenous dog people.
You'd feel no guilt for killing them.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no ethical considerations. They are, evil incarnate in little gross mangy dog forms. So I find gnolls are really good for lower level. Mid level, I think my favorite monster to use is a chain devil. It basically looks like a mummy, but instead of being wrapped in cloth, it's wrapped in chains, and it can fling these chains out and kind of lift them and hover them and swing them, and it's so effective in eliciting like just a fear of a demon response, because it's just flinging all these chains at you, and there's so many opportunities to grapple and to interact with it in a way that I love using a chain devil. And then I think high level, my favorite would be either, like I said, a dragon. That's always fun, or I really like hydras. Especially scaled up hydras that aren't necessarily, because hydras can technically be about mid level, but hydras I really like as bosses. What about you guys? Do you guys have any specific mid or high level monsters that you really gravitate towards?
For mid level, I really like illithids, otherwise known as mind flayers. I think they're just, I don't know why. I just think I love the Cthulhian aspect of the creatures being a very mind-focused challenge rather than just a physical combat-heavy challenge. It kind of changes things up compared to purely focusing on physical domination. There's a lot of... It changes the game into a more mental aspect as well, and even magical. And then for high level, probably... I think dragons are just the classic high-level, great just creature to throw in there for a challenge.
What about you, Will? I know you don't normally get to mid or high level, but what are some that you would love, be a dream to run?
For mid-levels, I would go with just a whole bunch of orcs. I think there's 4 or 5 different types of them across all these challenge ratings. And for me, it's just more fun to have these, I don't want to say mass combats, but these larger combats with a lot of kind of cannon fodder enemies backed up by things that support them. I think it's more tactical because so many times I've thrown one big enemy at the players and it just literally gets locked down in a spot, and then everybody wails on it until it dies. It's just really flat, and within the rules, which I try to be consistent about, they had a totally fair encounter. Yeah, everybody take a drink. He said it again. But as for the high level stuff, I would love to have just a whole bunch of beholders, illithids, mind flayers, whatever. I'm actually looking at an encounter generator and seeing what comes out
at the high level.
Yeah, at level 20, like desert, right? And it's talking about giants, and dragons, and ifrits, and I don't know.
Sphinxes, it's just, probably.
Oh yeah, it's just a mess, and it's great.
Yeah.
Like this one, 11 air elementals at the same time. That's fantastic.
11 air. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to try just a level 20 one shot. I've got a few players in my group that are just dying to try it out because they know with me I'm never gonna let them get that high with their normal characters because it's hard to roleplay when you're a god.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd love to just do a one shot and kind of test how the game breaks down or holds up with just super high level, beefy, powerful monsters.
David and I actually tested out a system for weapon enchanting that I was trying to create, and I think we only had like level 5 NPCs of just various classes, and we enchanted their weapons, and I made him fight an adult black dragon, and he killed it in 2 rounds. And they were. That's how I learned that A, David is a min-maxer to the extreme, and B, that my enchanting system was so overpowered it was completely unusable.
That's great. Okay, let's go to the vault.
What is your guys' favorite one-shot adventure that you've ran or played in?
Oh, I got mine. This was, for a long time, I played the Savage World system. This was the last time I ever ran it. It was loosely based on Warhammer 40,000, but just sort of without the. It was based on Warhammer 40,000, but with the serial numbers filed off, so I could just do whatever I wanted. The players played as a pre-made group of Marines going onto a derelict space station that was adrift, kind of Dead Space-esque, and they were unraveling the mystery of what happened. And there was a rogue AI. And
wait, I played in this game.
Yes, you did.
Oh my god,
so
that one was amazing.
Oh, that one was so good.
It was so fun. Like every little moment of it just worked out perfectly, in spite of I couldn't have planned it to go better, and that was my favorite one shot.
Oh, dang it, that would be mine. I totally forgot. That was a while ago, but that one was super great. Like that rogue AI was like, that was a great one. I think for me, probably. I had a friend in college who, for Halloween, really wanted to run Call of Cthulhu, and I had never played before, and so I was super excited for it. So he had this adventure, and what we did, we played as ourselves, me and the guys that I lived with in college, and what we did is we all rated each other's skills in the Call of Cthulhu system, and took the average, and then that was our skill. In each of the skills. So it was really funny rating each other's skills. And then we had our characters that were just literally us. And we were playing in our town, like in the city we were in. And so it was just crazy, like what happened when it was actually us and you kind of felt fear as who you are. And the DM was playing really creepy music. And the whole plot involved an ice cream man that would go out at night, and just the idea of an ice cream truck at night is horrifying. And I just remember literally getting chills on my spine with some of the creepy music mixed with the sound of an ice cream truck in the dead of night. It was a really creepy one shot, and that's probably my favorite for sure.
Wow,
David,
it's hard to pick. One of them isn't a one shot, but it's like a 2 or 3 shot, if that counts.
Disqualified.
So it was we were on a essentially battle royale on the moon. I don't remember what character I played, but we were fighting all these different like crazy teams, and probably one of the most memorable NPCs was a character named Allison Doggins, who was just a hot dog in a mohair sweater. And
God, yuck.
and I just it was probably one of the most unique games that I've played in, and it was really fun.
Oh, these are great. One shots are just a great time to try out new things, I think.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to Vox Arcana Episode 7. I'm William.
I'm Jake.
And I'm David.
We'll see you next time.